in Nawabian teachings, is Yakub seen as a being who could return or reincarnate in another form, or was his mission considered complete in that cycle? Thank you for all the information. Yeah, the Yakub story, you'll find that in a scroll called Shambhala Nagata, which we have available. And it's explaining to you, the story is on different levels. So, you know, like different people picked it up, like the Nation of Islam speak about it. Even the word Yakub relates to what I was saying about Jacob, right? Yakub. But the story is really about him grafting the beings known as the Flugorods, right? These beings came like 2,400 years before the Adamites. So that's 8,400 years ago. The Adamites were grafted 6,000 years ago. So that story of what took place with Lucianus and Yakob, who was really a product of a mixture of the Danakil, okay? These were beings that resided in the subterranean world known as Shambhala. And you had different beings, different like species of beings in that subterranean world, okay? Like the Danakil. The Danakil, they have huge craniums in terms of their heads, right? And then you had the Teros. The Teros are the cone-shaped head beings. So Yakub was a mixture of the two. And he came out because of that mixture, having two brains and having a very large head, okay? So he was teased by both sides of the family, and you know, he then rebelled and was like, he swore to get them back, and what he was going to do was create a being that's going to be weak and wicked, and he was going to be over them and control them as their god, and then be worshipped. And you know, this is what his ego. And but he was actually influenced by beings from Pleiades, the Pleiadians, and they actually activated his brain and gave him these diabolical thoughts of what he said he was going to do, but creating a being that's going to be weak and wicked. And he started to do that by way of genetic engineering, and it took him a period of 600 years, but he didn't actually survive to the end to see his creation manifest. But by the time his brain actually exploded, because, you know, as I said, his head was really big, he suffered from a brain clot, which basically led to his death. But his scientists, they continued and carried on the mission. And the result of that was the Flugorods, right? And then that story was then picked up by the Nation of Islam when they talk about it, but they just had bits of information. They were missing a lot of the detail, okay, which the master teacher provided. But they gave it to you in the lesson, saying that, you know, the uncle found magnets and rubbed them together, but there is symbology in the story as well as, you know, bits and pieces missing. So this is the scroll I'm talking about, Shambhala and Agatar, cities within the earth. And within this, the master teacher goes into a lot of detail about, like I said, the backdrop of the story, which I literally just gave you a piece. But like I said, when you start to tie it into the Pleiadians, the beings that were influencing him to give him this, because he was upset, he was angry, you know, kind of like the Cain and Abel story, where he got angry and then what resulted was bloodshed. He was basically trying to do the same thing. So in the end, he created the Flugorods, and later on, when the Caucasians, Adamites, sorry, because you got, when we say words, but you have to be clear on the different types of words that are used because they actually mean different things. So saying white, saying Caucasian, saying Adamite, saying Canaanite, Amorite, they all mean different things, even though some people will just put them all together into one. But the Flugorods 8,400 years ago later then mixed with those beings that were in the Caucasus mountain. This is where the word Caucasian, Caucasus, Asian, the Caucasus mountains, those beings then mixed with the Flugorods. But this is what, let me show you what, I just had a picture of. Yeah, this is what the Flugorod beings look like, okay? And he was the chief of the Flugorods. His name is Korg. And see if I can read you a little bit about what happened. But anyway, so let me go back to, so these are the Donacule. You see how they look? Yeah. So they basically, so Yakub was a product of them and the Teros, who are the cone-shaped head beings. Then you had other beings that came from Sirius, like the shaggy beings, that also raped and mixed with them. And so you've got different types of beings. There you go. These are the beings from Ashtar, the Ashtar command, the Pleiadians that actually, telepathically influenced Yakub, and they were tied into the being known as Hitler, who in itself was a reincarnation of one of the 200 fallen angels, but his name was spelled slightly differently, Hitla, and the one that most people know about was spelled with Ler. But you can see the relationship between the Pleiadians and him, as well as him trying to go about creating a superior race of blonde hair and blue eyes, etc., etc. So I had the picture, I can't find it now. But the Teros, yeah, there you go. These are the Teros beings that mix with the Donacule to produce who you're calling Yakub or Jacob. And in the story, in the biblical sense now, that Jacob supplanted Esau, yeah, to try and get the inheritance. Let me see if I've gone off. What was the question again? Where was that question? Okay, yeah. So the question was, in the Wapian teaching, is Yakub seen as a being who could return or reincarnate in another form? Yeah, I mean, most beings reincarnate over and over and over again until you learn how not to come back. And you do that by way of mastering this plane and elevating yourself so that you can actually move on to the higher vibration or higher realms. And when you say his mission was his mission complete, from that, today, you still have the Jebusites. Yeah, this is what's going on, where they're passing, they're running the world right now, right? Because the word ties into, they would say they're the Yahudaites, because out of the 12 tribes, the only ones that survived, because they were destroyed, if you read 2 Kings, right, they were destroyed, and the only ones that were left were the tribe of Judah and the tribe of Dan. But these Jebusites, Amorites, what they've done is supplanted themselves. This is what the story of Jacob and Esau is about. Like I said, some of it is allegorical, but some of it is symbolic and some of it is literal, in the sense that they supplanted and took over and pretended to be from, when they say Yahuda, because remember again, in Hebrew, there's no J's and V's. So the J, from where you're hearing Judah, from Jebus, is really dealing with the Yahudaites, right? The Yahuda, and trying to tie in Yahuda to Judah, because the Judahites are separate from the Jebusites. But if you don't know about the 11 sons of Canaan and know about this technology, they're in the world, running the world and supplanting themselves as the true beings, right? This is where, tying into the previous question, not to get too, you know what I mean, into the politics and all of that, but basically, Yakub's grafted being that he said he was going to create to rule the world and they would show him respect that he is their God, have supplanted themselves in the place of others, and they're now looking at everyone else and calling them infidels and heathens, and they read books like the books of the Talmud, which, you know, makes them feel like they're actually superior than everyone else. Yeah, and it's the same when you go to like Islam, where you're now reading books from the hadiths, instead of the book that's supposed to come from Allah, which is the Quran. And the same thing is happening in Christianity, where you've got these books that were written after, like, Jesus was supposed to have passed, like the Gospels and Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And then you look at that. So in the world today, as soon as the people that come with the message, the true message, it actually gets distorted. And then you have people following the wrong people and reading, you know, the words of men and not reading the scriptures. So the book in the Christian or New Testament that's really more authentic is John's book, because John was referred to as by Jesus his beloved, and his stuff collaborates with what Jesus taught. He received and the book of Revelation, which is really Jesus's book, because it tells you that. So there are many books in the Bible that people are reading and following that are not really authentic or the true. They're not even part of the original scriptures, but they've been added. So I know I've gone long on that, but that's dealing with Yakub. And yeah, people have manifested in the world today who are really the descendants of those beings that he grafted. And that's part of the problem of the problems we have in the world today.